So glad to see you guys. This is my second show, and I am so excited to share some wonderful information with you. I'm going to talk about food sensitivities. Yes, food sensitivities, not allergies, but sensitivities. And I think it's such an important topic to cover, especially in the healthcare arena, and especially because we see so many people that have these vague symptoms or these symptoms that with all of our traditional and conventional testing, we can't figure out what it is. We just can't put our finger on it as a physician. And so many times it's due to food sensitivities. So this show is going to be dedicated to raising your awareness to what those are and what you should do about them. So let's first talk about what are food sensitivities and how do they differ from allergies. Usually, when you hear the word sensitivity or intolerance, we think of allergies. Oh, they're just talking about allergies. No, there is a big difference between a food that you're allergic to, a food that you're sensitive to, and a food that you're intolerant to. So, what are allergies? We're more familiar with those, right? When you're allergic to something, usually the reaction is right away. You either break out in a rash, you itch, you swell, God forbid you can't breathe, or some sort of allergic reaction occurs. And that reaction is usually pretty quick. It can be immediate, it can be definitely within the hour, but usually shortly after eating or coming in contact with something you're allergic to, your body is going to let you know. You're going to know. With the food that you're sensitive to, you can eat it, and guess what? The reaction is delayed. So, food sensitivity reactions can be hours later, it can be 2 days, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, even a month later. And trying to connect the food that you're sensitive to the reaction is almost impossible. It could be just about anything. Another thing about foods that you're sensitive to, many times it could be your favorite food. It could be something that you think is very healthy for you. It could be fruit. It could be bananas. It could be apples. It could be grapes or even pears. So I'm just holding up fruit that are commonly eaten by us on a regular basis because it could be any fruit, any vegetable, any type of meat or protein, any seasoning, even certain herbs and spices you can be sensitive to. And here's another one people don't think about. You can actually be sensitive to food color and dyes and certain food additives. So, foods that you're sensitive to could be something that you could be eating or ingesting on a regular basis and you think is quite healthy because it is a healthy food. It's just that that particular food does not agree with you. And the unfortunate thing is that the sensitivity reaction is delayed. It doesn't happen right away usually. So to try to connect the symptom or the problem that occurred from eating that food to the actual food that you ate, especially if the reaction shows up a week later or 2 days later or 3 days later, it's almost impossible. That's why it's important to understand, and that's why we're going to spend more time on it. This entire segment I'm going to devote to food sensitivities. But I mentioned a third one, intolerances, right? Foods that you are intolerant to generally are those foods that you do not have the proper enzyme to digest. In other words, you can be intolerant to milk. You could have a lactose intolerance. That means you don't have lactase, which is the enzyme that helps you digest milk protein. so that you can absorb the proper nutrients from it and benefit from whatever you can. But if you don't have the enzymes to digest that food, you're going to have indigestion, you may get bloating, gas, you may feel sick. I mean, the symptoms are generally right away. So if you have a milk intolerance. Oh, usually you can tell. So a food that you're intolerant to is a food that you don't have the proper enzyme in your body to digest. That's different than sensitivities. Although you can be sensitive and intolerant to something. I know that complicates it a little bit more, doesn't it? So today we're going to talk about also some of the other differences between allergies and intolerances. So when you go into your doctor's office and you want to know if you're allergic to something, because maybe you get hives every, spring, and or your sniffles or congestion or runny eyes, or whatever the typical allergic reactions tend to be for you, and you want to know what you're allergic to, they usually will draw a blood test or they will do a skin prick test. But in the blood, what we're looking for is the IgE immunoglobulin. That is the antibody that causes the allergic reaction. It's IgE. But with a food sensitivity, we're looking for IgG. IgG is in girl, okay? It's different. And that is why allergic reactions are different than sensitivity reactions, because the marker in the blood, the antibody in the blood, is totally different. And what IgG reactions do, which are sensitivity reactions, it's basically a protein in your body that does not agree with your gut. So when you eat that food, the IgG reaction occurs, and guess what? Your immune system goes nuts. It goes into overdrive and it starts attacking your intestines. Yes, it does. And that's where the problem starts. So even though food sensitivities are generally go undiagnosed, you can have a sensitivity to something for years and never know it. But you're having some sort of complaint or problem, or, I'll get into the symptoms. It could be a rash, it could be headaches, it could be migraines, it could be weight gain, it could be so many fatigue, it could be so many different symptoms that are occurring because of the sensitivity reaction. But because you're never tested and your doctor never thinks about it, you go on for years and you don't realize that your problem is a sensitivity reaction. So that food that you are sensitive to produces a protein that your gut does not like. It triggers your immune system, and your immune system starts attacking your intestines. And it causes inflammation and all sorts of other problems. And it leads to leaky gut syndrome as well. And we'll talk about that in another show. However, let's delve into these food sensitivities a little bit more. Do you know that in America, well over 25% of all Americans have food sensitivities? And for those that come to see me, I actually think that statistic is much higher for the general population. I really do. I think it's just underdiagnosed. Because those that see me in my office, probably 80 to 90% of them will have food sensitivities. And the food sensitivities are at the root of many of their medical complaints and problems. And if it goes undiagnosed for years, you will have problems for years that your doctor will never pick up in traditional regular blood test, or it'll be picked up, but only after it's caused some sort of medical disease or condition. Because foods that you're sensitive to, even though they're usually not life-threatening, they can lead to other chronic illnesses and diseases. And those then can be diagnosed in your doctor's office because the major problem has already started. It's already surfaced. And it's been because of that food that you've been sensitive to for years and you just didn't know. So let's talk a little bit about what some of the symptoms are when we discuss food. I mean, when we are talking about identifying what you are sensitive, what sensitivities do. So, food sensitivity symptoms could be anything. Food sensitivity symptoms could be fatigue. It could be brain fog. It could be low energy. It could be depression, anxiety. It could be digestive issues like constipation, diarrhea. It could be rashes that you get and you don't know where in the world these rashes are coming from. Headaches, migraines, even weight gain. Yes, foods that you're sensitive to could even cause you to gain weight because it's a stressor. And all the foods that you're sensitive to are stressing your gut, causing your immune system to be hyperactivated, attacking the intestines themselves, causing inflammation in that area. So, foods that you're sensitive to can cause any symptom that you are concerned about. Things that your doctor hasn't been able to put their finger on. So, if you are concerned about foods that you are sensitive to, or if you're concerned about feeling terribly, feeling in a way that you know something's wrong, but you've gone to your doctor and they have told you that everything is just fine. Everything is just fine. But yet and still, you know something's not right because you feel it. It could very well be that food that you're sensitive to. So sometimes people come to me and we do their food sensitivity testing and we find that they are sensitive to black pepper. Can you get over that? Black pepper or garlic, apples, oranges, chicken, beef. Gluten is an easy one, right, to figure out because many people know if they're gluten sensitive. But what about if you're sensitive to lettuce, potatoes, celery? Celery is a big one because a lot of people use that when they juice. Or how about being sensitive to certain herbs that you're using, thinking that those foods or herbs are going to help you, like turmeric? About a week ago, we had maybe two people's food sensitivity result come back, and both of them were sensitive to turmeric. Can you get over that? And they were using turmeric or had used it in the past to to help with their inflammation because turmeric is really good. It's very healthy. It's an excellent remedy, natural remedy for so many different things. And I'm not saying don't use it. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it's so important to find out if you have a sensitivity to it because guess what? The very thing, which is inflammation, that you are trying to correct or address, you could be with turmeric, could actually be caused or worsened by the turmeric if you are sensitive to it. So, in the next segment, we're going to talk about some foods specifically that you should be on the lookout for that have a higher incidence of sensitivity than others. Doesn't mean you're sensitive to it. It just means that keep your eye open for it, watch your body, see how you feel even up to a week after you eat it, because that particular food could be your biggest problem and you don't even know it. So, in the next segment, we'll talk about 8 very common foods that you eat or food types of foods or classes of foods that you eat that could actually be causing many of your medical problems. So, in the last segment, I introduced you to food sensitivities versus allergies. And it's so important. I just want to reiterate that it's so, so very important that you understand that there is a difference and that an allergic reaction to something is mediated by something called your IgE, and that's how we test and do allergy testing. And a sensitivity reaction is mediated by the antibody IgG, and that's how we test for those. It's a blood test. The difference, the biggest difference, is that with food sensitivities, the reaction can be delayed. It could be something that you think is a very healthy food, and it could very well be a very healthy food. It could be your favorite food. It could be your favorite snack or type of snack. But lo and behold, you are sensitive to it. Your body doesn't like it. It's a protein that that particular food makes that does it wreaks havoc on the intestinal lining. And as a result of that, you have a reaction. And that sensitivity reaction can be delayed. It could be 2 or 3 days, it could be a week, 2 weeks, even longer. And that's different from an allergic reaction because you usually know in a short period of time, could be within seconds or minutes, if you are allergic to something, but with a sensitivity reaction, it takes a little bit longer. It may be a week, 2 weeks, 2 or 3 days before the reaction occurs. And so for you to be able to tie that food or beverage to to the reaction is very difficult because there's a delay there. So that's why it's so important. The other thing about food sensitivities is that they can cause just about any type of reaction. Usually with an allergic reaction, we're pretty well versed in what some of those symptoms would be, whether it's an immediate rash or hives or swelling or your throat feeling, scratchy, or God forbid, you can't, you have shortness of breath or something. We can usually tie it, and we're used to understanding what those symptoms usually are. But with a food sensitivity, do you know it could be fatigue? It could be brain fog. It could be depression, anxiety, moodiness, low libido. It could be headaches, rashes, anything. It could be indigestion. It could be digestive problems like, constipation, diarrhea, both. Heartburn, bloating, gas, anything. The problem also with food sensitivities is that even though the reaction will occur, whether you can recognize that it came from that food or food substance or not, the reaction will occur, but the long-term consequences of eating foods that you're sensitive to is that they can lead to chronic disease, illness, and complications from those diseases, right, can lead to death. Or your depression being so bad that no matter what type of antidepressant medicine you take, it doesn't work, it doesn't help. So you end up with 1, 2, even 3 antidepressants, or another one on top of that to help the original antidepressant. You can't figure out what the heck is going on. Why does this medication not help me? So it's important to understand that foods that you're sensitive to really need to be identified. And who's the person that should run into the office to ask for that? And I can tell you, traditional medical offices are not going to test for that. Seeing someone such as myself, who is a family practitioner, board certified for 27 years, and a functional medicine specialist, I am the type of physician specialist that you need to see. And you can actually reach me on my website, drchatman.com, drchatman.com. So my point is, seeing someone for food sensitivity testing is very, very important. simply because I, ladies, gentlemen, if you have gone to your doctor's office and you have been tested for everything that they can think of because you're not feeling well, maybe you're tired all the time, just exhausted. Maybe you have sleep issues. Your medication doesn't work as well for you, or you just don't want to take prescription medicine because you're, concerned about the side effects. Maybe you're having migraine headaches and you just want to know what the triggers are. You know some of them, but you know something else is wrong. Or maybe you just don't feel good and no one can tell you why because the test results keep coming back normal. But you know something's wrong. You know something's wrong. And no one can tell you. So they tell you, hey, your test results are good. Everything's fine. And you leave the doctor's office feeling like, my gosh, is this all in my head? Is there something wrong with me? Or maybe even the doctor has told you to see a psychiatrist. Go talk to someone. It's just stress. If this sounds like you, if this resonates, I'm going to strongly suggest you get in touch with me because I take care of people all over the country. And one of the things that must be assessed are these coming from foods that you're sensitive to? Because foods that you're sensitive to will go under the radar as causing medical conditions, and they are real. They do it. It does cause problems, big ones down the road, especially if you're sensitive to something you're eating every day. I'm going to give you a good example. What if you are sensitive to black pepper and you put pepper on your food every day and you can't figure out for anything, and your doctor can't either, why you just don't feel well, why you have low energy, or you have so much brain fog, or you just can't quite put your finger on why something's not right in your body, and the doctor just says, there is nothing else I can do for you. Well, you are a prime candidate for having this done, having this checked out. Why? Because I am so certain that part of your problems are coming from foods that you are sensitive to. And don't go running and grabbing some sensitivity kit off a shelf somewhere. Those are not the same. And you need a physician to help you, or a specialist in the area to help you interpret those results and exactly how you should apply that to your situation. So you can go get anything off the shelf, but you get what you pay for. I just want to say that. And the most important thing is to find out truly what's going on with you. So let's talk about what some of those foods are that are probably in your cabinet that could be a problem for you. And I just want to say, it doesn't mean that you're sensitive to it. It doesn't mean that everybody has a problem with that food. I want to make that very clear. I am not saying that everybody has a problem or sensitivity to these particular things that I'm going to bring up. All I'm saying is these are some of the more common foods that cause sensitivity reactions. And they are gluten. Let's start with that. Gluten sensitivities. You've heard of it. What is gluten? Gluten is a protein that's found in certain foods like wheat and rye and barley and rice, right? Gluten is that substance that helps food stick together. In other words, if you pick up a piece of bread and you squeeze it together and it forms that ball, doesn't it? It clumps. Or rice or pasta. You squeeze it together and what does it do? It forms, you can make a ball out of it and throw it actually. It's the sticky substance that is the gluten. It's that sticky protein that makes it stick together. That's the gluten. So you can have A gluten sensitivity that is celiac causes celiac disease, or a gluten sensitivity that's non-celiac, okay? Or you can just have a gluten sensitivity that causes wheat allergies as well. Excuse me. So gluten is one of the more common causes of food sensitivities. Very important because gluten, the protein, triggers your immune system in your gut to attack your intestinal wall, and it makes you sick. It leads to an inflammation in the gut wall, which then leads to leaky gut syndrome, which causes a whole myriad of other medical conditions, even weight gain. You can gain weight this way. So important to understand that gluten is one of the more sensitive substances that found in foods for people that causes sensitivity reactions. So what's another one? Milk. Milk is another substance, and it's the protein in the milk. It's the lactose or casein, milk protein, that is causing the problem. And you can have a milk allergy and you can have a milk sensitivity. You can have one or the other or both. A milk allergy really means that you do not have or milk intolerance, I should say, means that you do not have the enzyme lactose to digest milk. You're lacking the enzyme to digest milk. And as a result of that, your body just really causes abdominal problems. You can feel it. You drink the milk and you get gas, you get indigestion, you get bloating, you may get diarrhea, heartburn, some sort of digestive symptoms occur as a result of that. But you can also not have a problem and have enough of the enzyme, but be intolerant. So here's how that goes. You drink milk, you're okay, you don't get any symptoms, you're actually digesting it, but that particular casein protein, which is the protein that is in milk, does not agree with your gut. So now it triggers your immune system to cause inflammation in your gut lining and to lead to other problems, leaky gut syndrome, your immune system being hyper activated, and other medical conditions can occur because that leads to other intolerances and instabilities in your entire body. So you can have a milk intolerance or a milk sensitivity. Okay? So that's another important one to understand, because we always think that if you can drink milk and you don't have to use lactate or some sort of substance to help you digest milk, that you are free and clear from any sort of sensitivity to milk. And that is not true. You could still have a milk sensitivity that's causing a lot of problems in your gut. And you don't know it because why? Unlike an intolerance or an allergy, you don't feel the symptoms right away with a sensitivity reaction to milk. Your milk sensitivity reaction could be delayed a whole week or 2 or 3 days. So you're never going to connect that to the milk you put in your cereal or you used in your coffee or anything like that, simply because you didn't feel a reaction almost right away. Whereas with allergies and intolerances to milk, because you don't have the enzyme to digest it, as soon as you drink it, you feel a problem. Okay? Within the hour. It's a short period of time. So, just because you think you can drink milk doesn't mean you can drink milk. Okay? So, that's another one that has a high probability of sensitivity reactions. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is caffeine sensitivity. Yep, our wonderful caffeine. And we'll talk about that in the next segment, because we know for a fact that caffeine also helps prevent colon cancer. There's some really, really good health benefits of caffeine, right? Just like with these other things, there's some wonderful health benefits, but your unique body may not like it. So caffeine is the next one. It's the third thing on my list to be sensitive to, caffeine. And caffeine, as I stated previously, we found has some really, really great health benefits. So don't get me wrong. Yes, caffeine is not a bad thing. It's not something you should necessarily avoid unless you are sensitive to it. Because we have found, and studies have found, that caffeine actually helps with treatment for colon cancer. Yes, indeed. There's such thing as caffeine enemas that are done in some places for colon disease. So caffeine in general is nothing wrong with it, but if you are sensitive to it, it should be something eliminated from your diet for a period of time. And that's what's so important. And that's why it's so important to be tested and understand what your food sensitivities are. Again, I want to recap something, because if you're just joining me, you may be someone that has problems with symptoms and signs that no doctor can give you answers for. In other words, you have gone to your doctor, you've had tests, you've done everything that they can think of, yet and still they tell you that your results are normal, your blood tests are normal, whatever test they sent you for is normal, and that there's nothing else they can do for you, and that, maybe it's stress, maybe it's all in your head, maybe you're overthinking it, maybe they're thinking you're a bit of a hypochondriac. Maybe your family thinks that, your husband, your spouse, your significant others, your children, maybe someone else close to you that you feel should be supporting you just doesn't buy into what you feel. Ladies, I'm telling you, I have seen so many ladies in those shoes, and it's not in your head. I want you to know you are not hopeless. You are not hopeless. There is hope and there is healing for you. The problem is no one has identified it. And because our medical training, and I am a physician, I've been board certified in family medicine for 27 years, and I'm a functional medicine specialist, because I have been taking care of people for years. I've seen almost everything that can be seen in healthcare, in the healthcare arena, I should say. I know that these things are not in your head. I know that our training in traditional medicine, although it be one of the best on the planet, does not answer everything. And functional medicine literally picks up where traditional medicine leaves off. In other words, if you just are not getting the help that you deserve, if you are not getting answers, if your test results are not giving you reasons or explaining why, you just don't feel well, it's time to move on. It really is. And you really should start seeking out additional health care, additional care. And someone such as myself in functional medicine could most likely give you so many answers that you haven't had before. Why? Because we look at your body from a different perspective. We are trained to analyze the root cause, the underlying cause of the problem. And in identifying the underlying cause, one of the things that have to be looked at are food sensitivities. So, if that sounds like you, visit my website, drchatman.com, and make an appointment to see me. But please take notes and listen very carefully, because food sensitivities can cause so many of those symptoms that you're having. It's just that they haven't been identified, because the sensitivity reaction is many times to something that's considered very healthy, maybe your favorite food, and that reaction is delayed. What if you're sensitive to spinach? or lettuce, carrots, celery, chicken, apples, oranges, blueberries, garlic, black pepper, cinnamon, vanilla. What if you're sensitive to any one of those things? How about the food color on your food? Certain preservatives. What if you're sensitive to those things? No one's going to test that typically for you. And you'll go through life eating it thinking it's good for you because it is a good food. It just isn't the best choice for you. So, I want to tell you about some more foods that you want to look out for. Now, again, it doesn't mean that these foods are bad at all. They're very healthy for most people. They just may not be the best choice for your body. So as I mention these things, I don't want you going in your cupboards and throwing these things away or not buying them unless you're tested first to see if you're sensitive. Because what you're sensitive to, your significant other, your husband, your children, your parents, may be just fine. It's just you. So let's talk about the next common food groups that cause sensitivity reactions, and they are the salicylates. Salicylates are anti-inflammatory foods. That is actually a chemical compound. Salicylic acid is a chemical compound found in many foods. Yep, and even medicines. We use it to produce certain medications too. Salicylates in general are very anti-inflammatory. They are anti-inflammatory. They reduce inflammation. That's what they do. That's what they're good at. So if you're sensitive to a salicylate, instead of it reducing inflammation for you, it's causing it. Can I say that again? Can I say it loud enough? If you're sensitive to something that is typically considered an anti-inflammatory food, if you're sensitive to it, it could be causing inflammation in you. Okay, so what are some of those? Some of the foods that are that have salicylic acid or considered a salicylate also help with colon cancer. Yes. Oh, here's a biggie. Aspirin. Aspirin is a chemical. It's a medication. It is used for inflammation and pain. It's anti-inflammatory, analgesic, right? So it's a pain medicine that reduces inflammation. It's very, very good. We use aspirin, baby aspirin, for people that have heart disease, you know, if you have aching joints. I mean, it's really, really super beneficial, super, super beneficial. We also know that it has been found to help reduce the incidence of colon cancer. Yes. So aspirin is a really good thing. But if you are sensitive to it, it's not a good thing for you. So, what are some of the foods that are high in salicylic acid or salicylate? They're generally anti-inflammatory foods. And they are, well, some fruit like raisins and oranges, certain vegetables and tea, coffee, nuts, honey. That's just a short list. So if you are sensitive to any of those things, and I test for those, I test you for almost 200 different things. If you are sensitive to those, it is actually causing the problem that you're trying to treat. Do you understand why I'm having this having this talk with you today, and why I have these consultations with my patients? Because the very thing that you are using to try to do it yourself, heal yourself, could be causing the problem. The very food stuff that you are trying to use could actually be causing the problem. And again, it's a good, healthy food. It may be perfect for your husband or your children or your parents, It's just not the right one for you. And it's causing these medical problems that no one can pick up, because guess what? You're not allergic to them. You don't have an allergy to them. You have a sensitivity. An allergy test will not find it. Again, an allergic test, an allergy test will not find it unless you also have a concomitant allergy to it as well. You can be sensitive and not allergic. You could be allergic and not sensitive. Okay? I'm really trying to make this clear today. So, it's so important. What's the next thing on my list? Fermented foods. Woo, that's a big one, right? Fermented foods. Oh my gosh, ladies and gentlemen, fermented foods. We use those because we think for sure that all of them are great probiotics. And they are good. They're good prebiotics to produce probiotics. Excellent prebiotics for our bodies. Our fermented foods. I even recommend fermented foods in my program that I do. Fermented foods. But some fermented foods you can have a sensitivity to. Again, so here you go with this kitchen cabinet DIY medicine that you're trying to practice. I commend you for the effort. I really, really do. I really do. But you need a professional to help you truly ascertain what's going on. Fermented foods could actually be a type of food that causes a food sensitivity reaction in you, causing inflammation in your gut wall and leading to medical conditions, symptoms of fatigue and headaches, rashes, sleep problems, digestive issues, depression, anxiety. I mean, the list goes on and on. Eventually those problems cause chronic disease and can lead to chronic problems like diabetes or even cancer and death. So I want to make sure everyone understands that food sensitivities are something that really need to be evaluated. I want to wrap up though by finishing out and letting you know that there are certain fermented foods that are a problem, but there are also foods that we put in a category called FODMAPs, FODMAPs, and they stand for fermented foods, oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and various other saccharides. And those foods include things like cheeses and honey and milk and lentils. I mean, there's a list, a FODMAP food list. Those foods many times are higher in sensitivity reactions, and you really need to know if you're sensitive or not, okay? Because that type of food could be causing a problem for you. The other thing I want to mention are sulfites. Sulfites are found in wine, they're found in apple cider and canned vegetables. And lastly, I want to mention fructose. Fructose is fruit sugar. Fructose is, found in any sort of fruit because it's a natural sugar that's metabolized a lot better than table sugar. However, if you're sensitive to certain foods that have fructose, it's going to be a problem. So apples, honey, agave, cherries, pears, okay? These sorts of foods can cause problems because they actually have a higher incidence in food sensitivities. So, again, be very careful with what you eat and get tested. The most important thing you can do is to find a professional who can do the right type of test, because all food sensitivity tests are not the same. All of them are not as complete. All of them don't actually look for the specific protein that food produces. So you can, there are different types out there. It's so important to have a professional do that. It's very important that you actually get on my website, make an appointment to see me, listen to my webcast. My free webinar that I do, because it gives you so much more information about how I approach your health and what I do to help you get better. Food sensitivity testing is paramount, and it's so important to help me help you heal. Foods that you're sensitive to cause inflammation in the gut lining, which makes your gut very ill. That leads to leaky gut syndrome or intestinal hyperpermeability. That's the medical term for it. And that leads to other chronic illnesses and diseases. And to say the very least, it actually leads to you not feeling well, you not understanding where in the world why in the world am I feeling so badly and no one can tell me why. Just go to drchatman.com, drchatman.com. Schedule a free discovery call or set up a 1 hour consultation with me so that I can talk to you about your food sensitivities and what needs to be done, especially if you're not getting answers from your doctor.